Barbara Olson, a devoted grandmother from Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin, was 70 years old. Barbara volunteered as a senior driver in Sheboygan Falls. She was passionate about gardening. She was calm, friendly, polite, and cheerful. Judy, Barbara's daughter, lived a few miles away. Every morning, she would show up at Judy's place. Barbara, on the other hand, did not pay Judy a visit on Tuesday, September 18, 2012. Judy didn't see Barbara again the next morning. That made her concerned about her mother. Judy texted and called Barbara, but she received no response. Judy made the decision to go to Barbara's house, and she opened the garage door to enter the house. Judy was so horrified by what she discovered inside the garage that she fled to a neighbor's house. She was accompanied by her neighbor. She then contacted the cops. Judy had just discovered Barbara in the garage. She was surrounded by a pool of blood. Barbara's face was hidden by a blanket. Barbara was not wearing shoes. Her physique revealed that she had been beaten for an extended period of time, and there was a trail of blood leading from her body into the house. Judy was too traumatized to check to see if Barbara was breathing. The next-door neighbor had to look for her. The cops quickly arrived on the scene. Barbara's death was confirmed by authorities. Barbara's head was covered by a black plastic bag that was fastened around her neck with a belt. Her hair was virtually gone from the top of her head. Barbara's head was crushed to the point where pieces of her face were missing. Barbara was completely unrecognizable. Barbara's death was considered a homicide by the police. The manhunt for the murderer was launched. Barbara had no known adversaries. Barbara's family members were the first to be questioned by the police. They also investigated CCTV footage near Barbara's home. Interrogations and surveillance footage led authorities to two 13-year-olds, Antonio Barbo and his pal Nathan Pop. Barbara's great-grandson was Antonio. When he was 10 years old, he was riding his bike when he was hit by a car. As a result, he had a head concussion. Antonio was unable to do anything he desired following the accident. He wanted to do boxing, MMA, and football, but he couldn't do any of that because of his head injuries. Antonio's personality changed as a result of the brain damage. Authorities were notified that Antonio had escaped from social services at the time of Barbara's death. Furthermore, surveillance video showed Antonio and Nathan at Barbara's home at the time of her death. Then there was more bizarre Antonio and Nathan footage. The cops first questioned Nathan in front of his mother. Nathan burst out laughing during the interrogation. He was unable to express himself in front of his mother, so he requested a piece of paper to scribble it down on. He killed his grandmother, and I was with him, the note said. Antonio was later detained and questioned. He was first hesitant to reveal any details regarding what they had done, but he quickly confessed, and the authorities were made aware of the heinous circumstances of what had occurred to Barbara. Antonio escaped from social services. He then spent Friday at Nathan's residence. On the day of the murder, Monday, September 17, 2012, Antonio told Nathan that he knew of a way they might earn money. He planned to kill his grandmother for it. Nathan requested that his mother drive him and Antonio to Sheboygan Falls to visit a friend. Antonio and Nathan then went to Barbara's residence. They noticed the garage door was open. They entered the garage. Barbara exited her home and entered the garage. Someone had broken into her garage. She had heard. Barbara happened to notice Antonio and Nathan in the garage. She inquired if the boys were in the garage because they were cold. She also invited them inside. Barbara informed Antonio that she would notify his mother of his presence. She assumed he was fleeing. Antonio and Nathan took advantage of the situation to attack Barbara. Antonio initiated the action. He struck Barbara over the head with a hatchet. Barbara screamed before Antonio hit her again. Barbara collapsed on the ground, and Antonio kept hitting Barbara all over the place. Nathan got in on the act, beating Barbara with a hammer. Antonio and Nathan pounced on Barbara until they were certain she was dead. They then wiped out everything they had touched. Antonio covered his grandmother's head with plastic bags. To seal the plastics, he put a belt over Barbara's neck. Barbara's body was then dragged from the home into the garage by the boys. Then they attempted to lift Barbara's body into her car's trunk so they could dump her body. Barbara's body, however, was too heavy for them. Barbara's body was covered with a blanket. They then abandoned her. Antonio and Nathan stole jewelry boxes and Barbara's wallet. They then left in Barbara's automobile. They parked the automobile near Nathan's house, near a church. They then proceeded to Nathan's house. On their way to the residence, the two snatched money from Barbara's pocketbook. The wallet was then thrown into a sewer. The next day, Antonio and Nathan drove Barbara's automobile to a pizza establishment. Some of the money was spent on pizza by the two. The remainder was squandered on marijuana. Antonio and Nathan then went shopping for gloves and cleaning supplies. They attempted to clean their fingerprints off the automobile. They then simply left it there. Barbara's autopsy revealed that she had received around 27 total blows. Her injuries were caused by both sharp and blunt force trauma. Antonio was detained. He first denied murdering anyone. He also claimed to be suffering from a mental condition. Antonio was revealed to have cognitive issues as a result of his head injury. As part of a plea arrangement, Antonio later modified his plea to no contest. He was found guilty of first-degree deliberate murder in the death of his great-grandmother, Barbara. He was condemned to life in jail with the possibility of parole in 36 years. Nathan was also detained. In court, Antonio testified against Nathan. Nathan was also charged with first-degree deliberate homicide. He was condemned to life in jail with the option of release in 31 years. Antonio and Nathan took pleasure in getting high and feeding at the expense of human life. What are your thoughts on the Barbara Olson's case? I really appreciate your input. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Be a part of the Chris Crime Diaries family and hit the subscribe button now.